Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
Now, here's your host, Ed Cohen.
This is Ed Cohen in San Diego, California. You're on Global TV Talk Shows, and this series is called Education TV Talk Shows. And our special guest today is an expert at that, Tillie Elvum, a parent advocate and education advocate. Welcome, Tillie.
Hi, glad to be here with you, Ed.
Great, thank you. So I appreciate your busyness. I was up at 5 today getting ready for 7:30 broadcast, and now here we are today. So schools are opening, and there's total confusion, and you being a parent advocate, I think we ought to just step aside here, and I will stop talking. And so tell us about what is a parent advocate in this concept.
Well, every parent is naturally an advocate for their kids. The minute, particularly for moms, the minute you find out you're pregnant, you start changing the way you do things because it's not about you anymore. And you know you're bringing this new life into the world, and then we have our children. And for a lot of years, for a lot of time, there was just kind of this, social construct that as parents, we have our kids and then their formal education starts and we hand them over to people and then they're the experts. And suddenly you're just kind of, along for the ride. Well, I've never really been a fan of that line of thinking. And as, I was a parent and I had two children who were unique and needed unique things in their education. I started doing advocacy on behalf of my own child. What eventually happened is that I met tons of families, thousands of families over the last almost 2 decades. And not every family can make a trip to a state legislature for a hearing on an education issue. Not every family can make it to every school board meeting. And so you just start meeting families, and I realized the need was great and that I wanted to help my fellow parents. And so that's where my parent advocacy came from. But I always operate from a place of how can I help my fellow parents become the very best advocates that they can be for their own children, because nobody speaks for a child better than their own parents or the caring adults in their lives.
How do you reach parents?
So in so many ways, obviously, 20 years ago, my advocacy started literally with me with like a little clipboard, walking through neighborhoods in my community on an issue, knocking on doors, talking to parents and grandparents and community members. That's how I initially started. Then this great thing happened called social media. And now we're able to really amplify the voices of parents across every socioeconomic background, every community in the country. And so I do a lot of work. I run an initiative called Parent Support for Online Learning, and we have a really robust Facebook group. Of course, I'm on Twitter and all of those things. So, it's just really meeting people where they're at. And we're lucky that we have these great devices, these great tools where we can connect with people all day long on the issues that matter to them. When families are in crisis, they know they can ping me on social media or, through the website, or send me a text or a phone call, whatever it is. And we're able to have that connection and build those relationships. We're really blessed. We have this great technology that allows us to share information, resources, and encouragement when parents really need it.
And the biggest issue, as you see it, there's probably more than one, but the biggest issue is, this idea of kids lost a year. I don't know. Is that right?
Well, it depends on who you talk to. But, we're now seeing some states last year did their state standardized tests, and we're starting to get some of those numbers back. And it's a little bit, concerning. We're seeing that some kids, because of COVID, the interruption to learning, and we can point fingers at whatever it is, whether it was remote learning or, just the fact that kids were learning in an environment that wasn't their norm. But we're seeing there's some evidence that they're saying some kids, basically lost a year of learning, sometimes more, depending on the subgroup of students. And so parents and educators are a little bit concerned over what we're calling COVID learning loss. That said, there are some families that experienced technology, remote learning, online learning in a new way because of COVID, and they found out that their kids actually thrived during that time because they got some more one-on-one attention. Maybe they were learning in an environment that felt, less distractions, less of the crowd control issues that happen in a traditional school setting. So, we have some concerns, but we also know that there were some silver linings for different students. And I think it's important that we kind of adapt and look at education going forward and figuring out what does each kid specifically need and what systems are in place that we can meet kids right where they're at in the moment.
So just to take the topic of, say, 6th, 7th grade, geography, okay, American geography.
Yeah.
Okay? So if I remember right, we had to learn where the rivers were, the state names, and the capitals, and maybe even if the economy at that time was known for steel or oil or agriculture. Is that still going on?
Oh, yeah. Every state has different standards. We public school educated in 4 different states with our kids. And so each state has their own requirements. And, it might be 3rd or 4th grade where they're going to study about their particular state. And then they have, US and state history, government. That is still an expectation. It may not have the same focus that maybe we experience because, there's always a saying like we teach what we test. And a lot of states, they may not test every year for social studies. And so the focus may not be as great. But that's where, school choice options really come into play, because if that is content matter that's really important to you as a parent, you want your student to have that, you should be able to find a school that is a rich part of the curriculum and that it's not kind of an afterthought, but that, it's really given some intentional attention during the school year.
Yeah. Okay. So do you have town meetings? Do you stage town meetings by Zoom?
So what I do, I host a show every week, kind of like you, called the Parent Exchange at Parent Support for Online Learning. It's a Facebook live stream, and then we have a YouTube channel and a website, and we always share it over on Twitter as well. But every week I get together with parents, students, educators, education providers, thought leaders within the movement, parenting experts. We try to hit a wide range of topics and bring in people that really have expertise to give parents really good information and resources that they can use every day when they're supporting their kids learning at home, whether they're doing remote learning, full-time online learning, homeschooling, or maybe their kids are in a traditional setting, but they want to support learning at home and they want to know how to do it right. I work really hard to bring in people to have those conversations. Additionally, I poll our group a lot. I can sit here and say, oh, I want to bring in this guest or that. Well, if it's not really meeting the needs of families, what's the point of that? So I really try to periodically check in with the members of our group, find out how they're feeling. What areas are they struggling in? Where do they need support? And then from there, plan what those live streams are going to look like. So communication is really important, and hearing from parents and being responsive to what they need is really at the heart of what I try to do in all of my work.
So obviously, the age of the kid determines the format of your involvement, right?
Yeah. The younger kids, generally, they're going to need more support. They're just learning. And so they need more support from parents, from teachers. And then the hope is, though, that as our students get older, that they're developing more autonomy, that they're getting more voice and choice in their education. They're developing their self-agency and becoming more self-driven in their education. And so by the time, when we started my family, when my son first enrolled in a full-time online public school, that he was in third grade. He needed a lot of support. And, honestly, he had gaps in his education. He had a learning difference. He was in a learning model prior to online that was not a good fit for him. But by the time we got to those middle and high school years, I literally could start the day and say, what do you have on tap? What's assigned to you? What's your plan? What are you going to do? And then I was able to walk away and let him navigate his learning day. And, as all students, they figure out, what works for them. Do I want to do algebra first, or do I want to do, this writing assignment first? He had the ability to make those choices. And then as a parent, I came in to be the support. If we figured out he was struggling, okay, what are we going to do? Let's look for another resource online. Maybe you need to watch a tutorial, or maybe there's a math puzzle game or something that will help you improve your skills and help you retain information in your working memory. Maybe we need to call the teacher, and maybe we need a one-on-one tutoring session, whatever that was. But the goal always was to really develop a self-motivated and intrinsically motivated learner. And that happens over years as your kids mature and they develop all of those learning skills.
Hi, this is Ed, and I thank you for tuning in to Global TV Talk Show, a unit on globalbusinessnews.net. We broadcast to the world, as you know by now. So I wanted to make sure that you understand that our programs are advertising supported. We're grateful for co-sponsors, advertisers. They have a marketing budget coupled with a strong desire to be associated with our top quality program. And of course, I'm grateful. Thank you. So for the next few minutes, you're going to see some commercials. It's mostly very low key, and our prices are very, very reasonable. Our exposure for the advertisers go 12 months and beyond. Some of our advertisers have been with us since March, April of 2020. And Google Analytics has tracked over 125,000 what they call audience page views, which means you looking at this page, that's a page view. Now, if you happen to go to one of our other shows or to our radio broadcasts or to our newspaper or magazine, those become additional page views as measured by Google Analytics. And so when they say 125,000 since spring of 2020 up through Labor Day, a month ago, that's pretty good numbers. And the past 30 days, Google Analytics has measured just under 6,000 audience page views. And that, according to them, is a 42% increase in audience participation over the month of August. So thank you very much. Well, here's our advertisers, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes or so, and we'll proceed with this interesting conversation. Thank you.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice, at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
And by airs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at airs.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
Hi, I'm Sergey Gorbatov.
I'm Angela Lane.
Together we are researchers, writers and practitioners in the field of human resources.
And we've also been multi-country, multi-assignment career expats.
We owe our professional development and growth to a very large extent to the international assignment opportunities that we have had.
But in a world where distributed work may become the norm, we also want to understand what will happen to the nature, duration, and purpose of international assignments.
Together with our colleague, Julian Dalzell from the University of South Carolina, we're undertaking a study on the future of expatriation.
And we'd value your contribution. You can participate in this important study by completing a simple 10-minute questionnaire.
Access the questionnaire by typing in your browser tinyurl.com/expert study. That's tinyurl.com/expert study. You can also find the link here on Ed's website next to this video.
Thank you for joining us in this study. In return for your contribution, we'll provide you with a copy of our research.
And of course, you'll be invited to an exclusive webinar hosted by Ed, where we will share our findings right here on Global Business News.
And so please go to tinyurl.com/expat study. Take the survey so that we can better understand the future of expatriation.
So let's take young kids, okay? Do you use a Sesame Street kind of a environment?
So there's so many resources out there, Ed, especially for your little ones, and there's really robust online learning platforms that parents can tap into to support their little ones. I mean, we've all heard of ABC Mouse. That's one of probably the very first app that any kid's going to use as a preschooler. And it's a great program. It gets kids introduced to, numbers and letters and colors and shapes and all of those things. And then just as your kid progresses, you can tap into other resources. And at Parent Support for Online Learning, we have a really rich resource section, a files section where families can go. We've curated it. We do it by content level. Some of it is by grade level. And so you can just go in there. And then, members of our group are constantly sharing information. And we try to make it easy to search for. If you're looking for math, you just type into math. And anything that's been tagged as math that's been submitted by a member or by myself, administrators in the group, it'll populate and you can go through there and find just all of these resources. Parents don't have to go it alone. There's so many resources out there to assist you in supporting your kids learning at home.
And so the parents need help.
Yeah, I'll be honest. We're going into our third school year impacted by COVID. And I really thought by now we'd be in a better place. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of debate, politicization about education, whether it's in person, whether they're going to wear masks, whether the teachers are vaccinated, whether kids are vaccinated, just all of this stuff. And just it's heartbreaking to me that because we have all this technology, we know how to do online learning with kids, that we're entering our third year impacted by COVID. There are actually schools, there's states and school systems in this country that have said we are not going to offer any remote learning to students during COVID. And so you have kids who may be compromised, health-wise. Their parents might be compromised health-wise. They desperately need a remote learning option just for their health and physical safety, and it's not being offered to them. And so to me, that's disheartening. What's even worse is that some of these systems have not planned, and there's no remote learning, there's no quarantine learning. So kids are actually receiving less instruction today than they received last year during the height of COVID, which is, it's unbelievable to me. We're getting state test scores saying that they may have up to a year of learning loss. And that most of that was due to the uneven, chaotic delivery of remote learning last year. And now they're receiving even less teacher contact and instruction this year, the third year of COVID. What are we doing? We've blown it. It pains me to say it, but there's been a lack of vision in our traditional school systems. And the idea that the only way that we can serve kids during this crisis is to have them all packed into a classroom. I don't think that's the right way to go. And
So,
instead of embracing innovation and giving school leaders the ability, because there were school leaders, they were prepping for another year impacted by COVID. They were developing remote learning plans. We know schools got better doing it as this pandemic has progressed. And then we had politicians and education bureaucrats come in and say, no, this was a horrible experiment. And so instead of giving, people in the trenches with families the ability and the freedom to respond and innovate, they just put remote learning bans in, and now families are really suffering because of it.
So let's give people your website or email or phone number. Why don't you just enunciate that?
Sure. So you can find me on all social media, Facebook and Twitter, at Tillie Elvum. And then the website for parent support for online learning is www.parentssupport.com, parentsforsupport.com. And then we have a Facebook group, and there's, oh my goodness, I think there's 6,500 members in that group from around the world sharing resources and support. And you just search parent support for online learning on Facebook, and you can reach us that way. And then my email, always happy to speak with parents, talk to them about their options, or if I don't know the answer, put them in contact with folks that can help them. And that's Tillie at parentssupport.com.
Very helpful, Tillie.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we end, let's talk about this concept called micro education.
Yeah.
So what is that? That's not a one-room schoolhouse, is it?
Kind of. It's kind of like everything old is new again. And so because of COVID, we saw families responding by thinking outside of the box. And fortunately, in this country, we have so many great, innovative educators out there who were already doing this work, but now it's becoming more well-known and accepted by the masses. And so we saw learning pods created. Learning pods were really a response to the pandemic specifically. And that's where parents got together. Maybe it was a group of 7 families, and they said, you know what? We're not comfortable sending our kid into a classroom of 30 kids in a school of 1,200 kids and having that kind of contact and putting our kids at risk of COVID or bringing COVID home to somebody at risk. But we'll hire a teacher or another adult to oversee education for our kids, especially because we had a lot of parents, they were working. They couldn't do their jobs and oversee their kids and provide care for their kids. So they did that pod concept. Prior to COVID, we already had micro schools operating in this country, and micro schools are a little bit different, where the students, it could be 3 to 4 kids, 5 to 10 students, and they have a trained guide. Sometimes it's an educator, sometimes it's a homeschool parent who just really is passionate about education, and they want to support other kids in their community in their education. And so these micro schools, they provide the curriculum, the technology that kids are using, and they provide a trained guide to oversee education for students within their micro school. It's a wonderful trend. I think it really lends itself to not just education during a time of COVID. But I think it really is going to resonate with families who want their students to maybe get a more personalized education, utilizing great technology, but to have the support of a guide or a trained educator, and then to have that socialization piece that you might miss out on if you were just doing traditional homeschooling with your child. There's a lot of great things going on. Definitely micro schools, online learning pods, they are the silver lining of this COVID epidemic.
Tillie Elvum, thank you for being on
Yeah.
Education TV, global TV talk show. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Ed.
Be well.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks for being a leader.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.